I want to bring in our panel, and to discuss this proposed legislation. Joining us now is Alan Dershowitz, professor at Harvard Law School and author of the new book, Terror Tunnels, The Case for Israel's Just War Against Hamas. And also joining us is Dr. Mitchell Bard, executive director of the American-Israeli Cooperative-Enterprise and author of the book, After Anatevka, Tevi, and Palestine. Thanks so much for joining us, both of you.
Thank you.
Alan, critics say the proposed legislation betrays the principles in the Israeli Declaration of Independence. Does this bill subtract in any way from Israel's commitment to a democratic state devoted to human rights?
Well, let me just read you what Benjamin Netanyahu has said, because no bill is going to pass without his support. He says, here in the state of Israel, the Jewish people have achieved their state determination in a democratic state that guarantees equal rights for all of its people, all of its citizens, regardless of race, religion, or sex. I can virtually guarantee you that any law that passes the Knesset will not abolish Arabic as an official language, will not have Jewish law. First of all, the vast majority of Israelis are secular. Israel is a far more secular country than the United States, and the secular Jews would never permit Jewish law to be a source of secular law. They demand the separation of church and state. So my recommendation is take a deep breath. Israel's a democracy. It's now having elections. The end result will be simply to parallel the Declaration of Independence. The Declaration of Independence itself declares Israel essentially to be the democratic nation state of the Jewish people for equal rights for all. That's what will happen. Now let's turn for a second to Palestine. The Palestine Constitution provides that Palestine will be an Islamic state under Sharia law, with no rights for Jews and few rights for Christians. And when you talk about Israel, it's always part of the Israel-Palestine conflict. Let's always talk about Palestine. They have a law now that prohibits the sale of land to Jews. Jordan has the same law. Virtually every Arab country declares itself to be a Muslim country under Sharia law, and we don't hear any complaints about that. Israel is struggling with this because the Palestinian president refuses to recognize Israel as the nation state of the Jewish people. That's the source of this problem. This is a response to Abbas, and by the time it gets out of the Knesset, it will be a response to Abbas which declares equality and democracy as equal to the character of the state as the nation state of the Jewish people. So take a deep breath.
Dr. Bard, we want to bring you into this conversation as well. Do you think the bill provides any additional security for the state of Israel, and does it put Israel in great danger?
Well, I agree with everything that Alan said. I think that this is really being overhyped, and really at this point it's probably moot now that the Knesset has voted to dissolve and to have elections. During the election campaign, this issue may be one in the political rhetoric, but isn't going to come to a law. The other thing about it is, I think, as Alan said, a lot of it had to do with putting Israel in a position with Abbas and the other Arab states to, I think, try to force them to acknowledge the reality that Israel is, in fact, the Jewish state. And by codifying this, in addition to the other things that it was planning to do, I think Netanyahu hoped to force Abbas or any other Arab leader who would make peace to accept that Israel is in fact a Jewish state.
I would add just one word to that, and that is when the United Nations partitioned Palestine into two areas, the United Nations declared that there will be two states for two people, essentially declaring that Israel is the nation state of the Jewish people, and that the other state, it wasn't called Palestine at the time, would be a nation state for the Arab people. Israel accepted that partition. The Arabs, of course, rejected it and went into a genocidal war in which 1% of Israel's population was killed defending its rights under the UN declaration. So this goes way, way back in time. Is the law needed? No, I don't think the law is needed. I think the Declaration of Independence says it all. But in a democracy, people ask for things in response to realities. And it's Abbas who started this whole thing.
And time is a situation we have to deal with. We need to step away. Gentlemen, stay with us. We'll come back with more on this subject right after this timeout.